Hey everyone, so the RTX 4060 Ti came out today, and we should already have a review on the channel, so check that out if you want to see all the performance numbers, thermals, all that stuff. In this video though, we're just going to be tearing it down. So this is a look at the build quality, the assembly overall, the hopefully adequacy of the cooler, and we're going to see how it looks internally, how NVIDIA is doing with their Founders Edition design. It's going to be pretty straightforward, so let's get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by Squarespace. We use Squarespace for our own GN store and juggle complex, multi-piece orders all the time with it. Squarespace makes it fast for us to roll out new products with detailed pages full of galleries, videos, and descriptors. It's also useful for your own resume sites, for photographer or project portfolios, or for starting your new small business idea. There's never been a better time to try and start your new business than right now, and we can vouch that Squarespace makes it easy. Visit squarespace.com/gamersnexus to get 10% off your first purchase with Squarespace. We're going to start with an external visual walk around before tearing it apart. So it is the 4060 Ti. Big major controversy here. They changed the font between the 30 and the 40 series. And I mean, I guess I've seen enough personally. I can't even buy it if they're not using the old font. Other than that, NVIDIA is not getting away from this 12-volt high power connector. So they're still doing a 12-volt high power, even though it's a single 8-pin. Board partners can and probably will just use the single 8-pin. But NVIDIA here has chosen to go with a 12-volt high power 2 8-pin, or you can do native. For the fin stack design, this is pretty standard now for NVIDIA's Founders Edition cards. So they're going with standard height PCIe. It is a proper 2-slot card, so no extra thickness there. 2 fan, so this is a pull, the other one is a push, but this one pulls straight through in what has now become a standardized flow-through design for a lot of NVIDIA cards, even the partner models. For the rest of it, there's really not a lot different here to talk about. So the shell is still this like X-frame, they call it, design. So metal shell, metal backplate, hopefully with some thermal pads under it. This just pops off. They hide all the screws these days because apparently screws and functionality are unsightly and companies can't show them anymore. And then on the front side, large fin stack here. It's going to be heat pipes within it. We're going to look for a vapor chamber. I kind of doubt they're going to have one because it seems unnecessary at this power target. And as a reminder, this card, the MSRP is $400 and it's $500 for the one with 16 gigabytes of memory. All right, so the teardown on these is pretty straightforward so far anyway, once you know the trick. There's a slot back here. I'll show you that notch. That's where you can get something flat. Flathead kind of works. Something narrower than this would be better. And then you pop off the panel. Okay, pretty straightforward. No direct thermal pad contact here. So this is like the pseudo, this is the deco plate. It is only for decoration. But I mean, purely technically speaking, perhaps this is irrelevant ultimately at this power level. Purely technically, sinking into this back plate but not into this one means you are kind of limiting your use of a great natural conductor of metal and trapping it within the walls here. But if it's low enough power density, then it may not matter, and we'll see that in our review. So they're using Torx screws. These are either 5 or 6. We'll take those apart shortly. And then for, is this just, these look like they're just magnets. Yeah, those are just magnets. And I mean, we're already at this fan, but you would not be able to replace the fan yet. You would still have to take this apart if you wanted to replace the fan because the cable is submerged. So let me grab a Torx. So these are Torx 6, which we do have these in our toolkit. Right now I'm working on top of the solder mat. This is on store.gamersnexus.net. If you want to grab one of these are the insulative soldering mats with the extreme heat resistance, but you could also buy the underlying mod mat down here if you want an anti-static conductive surface with a bunch of printed diagrams on it for your PC building. Both of them are pretty large mats though, which is great for bigger projects. Oh, that's interesting. This, no, never mind. It's not interesting. I thought this was separating from the rest. I take it back. So some thermal pads back here, they're using those sort of canvasy pads that we've shown in the past. It's almost got that consistency of the old Fuji poly pads. This is the VRM on the opposite side here. So they are conducting through a pad into the plate for the VRM. This looks like where the chokes likely are. There's nothing connected to the back of the memory or the back of the GPU core, but they do have something. Where is that? This pad is positioned at the backside, it looks like, of the 16-pin or the 12 plus 4-pin connector, which is right here. So I think that's where that one's contacting. It might be just below it on that 5 milliohm shunt resistor. But either way, that's the layout for this so far. So we've got 2 cables to disconnect. This one and this one. This is like a speed run taking apart an NVIDIA GPU. We've done enough of these now. It's the only way to keep it fresh because they are sticking to the same design. Is this the same? That is also torque 6. We're going to go opposing corners. If you ever take one of these apart, any GPU to repaste or something, we advise reducing the tension one by one, hit them 2 or 3 times each, and that helps you prevent the screw from flying across the room. Also reduces the amount of force you're applying to the PCB and the core at any one point. How many screws are we up to? 1, 2, 6, 10. Not bad. So we're at 10 screws to get the card mostly apart, which is a lot better than NVIDIA used to be. They used to be in the 60s or 70s. Okay, so we're trapped by the I/O plate, but it is able to disconnect already. These torques, those are torques 9. So there's 4 of these. They hold the I/O plate in place, and there's probably a deco fin under it. I'm sure Malcolm at NVIDIA is laughing now because I think he jokingly called it a deco fin stack, and I said, oh, like deco, like Art Deco? And he said, sure. And now it has become a deco fin. Yep, check that out. So this is basically not real fin stack. It's just to hide what I assume NVIDIA thinks is an unsightly look into the actual cooling solution, because this could come out with 2 screws. Good news is it doesn't look like it has to come out because I think this board's already loose. Yep, let me get this pad salvaged though. All right, here we go. This is looking an awful lot like the 4070. Very tiny die. There is once again the mysterious number. This we think is out of the factory QC. Talked to some people after the last one, and it sounds like this is just part tracking. So the thermal pads, that's kind of tight tolerance. I don't know. That's pretty on top of the GPU. It looks like this one, their heights are fine. In the past, I've seen cards where the GPU will run hot because the memory starts to sit on top of the actual substrate. That's the green part. And the problem it caused on the old card I'm thinking of is it created a big air gap where there was no connection to the cooler. So they're okay here, but it is awfully close. And I guess we'll go ahead and wipe that GPU. I'll take a quick measurement of what we can see of the die as well. Funny to not see the full product naming on it. So there's the exposed die. I'll take a measurement now. Okay, quick die size measurement. So technically speaking, we're measuring at the structural silicon. So it's not perfect, but it looks like we're at 13 millimeters this direction, 15.5 that direction. Very tiny die. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to go smaller with the silicon as to the extent they can because it's significantly cheaper at every stage. You start sacrificing things like the frame buffer bus width, as we talked about in the news video, and they're trying to compensate that for cash. Presumably, they think that's the better trade-off. The other option is to go bigger, but then cost is higher, And if they don't want to cut into their massive margins they've had the last few years, that would be passed on to the consumer. So what I'm doing now is I'm comparing this PCB to the 4070 PCB from our previous teardown. They look very similar in design. So this is a 4-phase just right here on the left. We've got 4 FETs over here, ignoring this VRM down here. And on the 4070, it looks like we had 5 on the left side. So they were populating these 2 locations and this location. They were skipping the 4th. They were populating the 5th, skipping the 6th, populating the 7th. And then they actually had 2 unpopulated locations down here. And then for PCB, actually looks like it's a little bit different. So it just from looking at it in our previous footage, they're maybe not exactly the same, but they're close in size at least, if not nearly identical in most aspects. The rest of the VRM layout, so we have nothing on the right side other than some memory VRMs here. And then on the 4070, they ran 3 memory modules on the bottom here, and they had 3 memory modules on the right side. And there were 2 unpopulated locations up top, which is kind of interesting. But on this one, it's just 4 memory modules, no unpopulated locations. So dreams of adding modules to the 4060 Ti 8 GB to turn into a 4060 Ti 16 GB at this point are dashed. You wouldn't be able to unless you pulled these and swapped them for modules that are higher in density, I guess, unless it's got to be a density increase unless they're putting more modules on it, because this one is maxed out. So the board is either different or the density is higher for the 16 GB version. A couple other unpopulated headers down here. So we've got 2 4-pin headers. Not sure what their plan was for that one, or if they're using it elsewhere. I guess theoretically that could be a fan, or it could be an RGB connector type of thing. But either way, they're not used on this. Let's look at the cooler now. So on the cooling solution, they've gone with just a copper cold plate. There's no vapor chamber. Yeah, that's just a cold plate. And standard design, so copper cold plate with heat pipes. Although you can see the milling marks, can't really feel them. I don't think we'll bother measuring flatness. This cooler's low enough end that it's kind of irrelevant. But for the heat pipes, there's 1, 2, 3. I can see 4 heat pipes on this side. They might be hiding a 5th one, it looks like, in here, unless that connects to the other 2, but I can't tell without a further deconstruction of this. That might be destructive to do. Yes. Heat pipe size looks like maybe 6s, either 6 or 8. Yeah. It's right in the middle. Marketing calls it an 8. So that's the heat pipes. 4 of them in there. For thermal pad coverage, so they're using this sort of lowered aluminum plate to contact with the MOSFETs, and they've got 2 pads that are each connecting with 2 FETs. That's going to be over here. So these 2 MOSFETs and these 2 MOSFETs connect to those 2 pads. So they do have coverage of them. And then let's see. This thermal pad is contacting these 3 components, and then this thermal pad is contacting this MOSFET down here. So in terms of the cooler, they're trying to pack as much as they can into a 2-slot. This is where the flow-through design maybe is going to lose some ground versus some of the more standard partner solutions, or at least is full flow-through. I think typically at this smaller size, although NVIDIA has certainly gotten a lot more competitive in its FE cooler designs, the partners still have some strengths. It's just a matter of whether they deploy them properly or whether they are busy releasing the next clown car of GPU designs. As for the rest of this, so size of the PCB, let's just take some measurements for people who might want to maybe do a water blocked or pseudo DIY blocked design. I'll take it the shortest point first. Shortest is approximately 140 millimeters across. Longest, the calipers aren't long enough. It's like 153 plus 15 or so. It's about 168 millimeters. So I think Good sizing, but the 4070 would give you more power in a similar form factor. So that's it for the teardown. This one really straightforward. It's I think I said this last time. It's always weird when the product is so simple to take apart because kind of like, I don't know, we have, let's see, 14 screws that we took out of this thing. Very easy to work on. The fans, you would have to take a few more out to replace them, of course. But overall, I don't really have any complaints about the way this is assembled. If NVIDIA wants it to look this way, then the way they've assembled it seems actually pretty reasonable for the most part. Still not a big fan of how this sockets in, but their defense for it was, I think it was to reduce some of the vibrational concerns, like rattle potentially between the outer shell and the heatsink. It's also easier from a manufacturing perspective, I'm sure. But overall, no real complaints. The cooling solution, we'll talk about its efficacy in the review. So as I'm filming this, I actually don't know how it did, but we've already tested it and taken the data. And you all will know before me, even though when I post the video, I'll know, so I'll know before you. But it's like this version of me and not that version. So anyway, point is, the thermals are in the review. No major complaints. The board's small. Not worth water cooling, of course, even to get it smaller because it's not enough power density. You'd be better off waiting for a partner to make some super small design for ITX. It's definitely possible to do probably a decent single fan design, even if it has to be a little thicker or something. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching as always. Subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to grab one of the mats that we worked on today or this shirt because these are running out. The sales will be closed pretty soon. So thank you for watching. See you all next time.